Hi, everyone. This is Shaman Jon Rasmussen, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Shaman Radio Podcast. And today we have a wonderful privilege of having a guest. Mark Sinclair Fleeton is a friend of mine and a founder and editor in chief of AI Portalen, which in Danish is stands for AI Portal. Denmark's essentially independent monthly media platform dedicated to artificial intelligence, society, and ethics. With a background in communications and years of experience in journalism and strategic communications, Mark has turned his attention to how AI reshapes work, democracy, human agency, and meaning. He writes and speaks on how we hold on to the human dimension: judgment, empathy, purpose, in a world increasingly designed by algorithms and data flows. His writing spans deep interviews, analysis, and commentary on AI's societal impact in Denmark and beyond. And beyond his work with AI and ethics, he brings a deep curiosity about consciousness and what it means to be human, a journey that extends beyond the purely rational, which is why we're talking, because I'm pretty much beyond the purely rational side of things in everything I do. Um, so welcome from Copenhagen, Mark. Great to see
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Always great to see you. And, you know, I think this happened mainly because I recently, I guess, posted an article on AI and consciousness and whether we were asking the right question. Is AI becoming more and more conscious, potentially sentient, all those kind of questions? Or is consciousness using AI, or can possibly be using AI, or might in the future, to communicate through as a pretty profound means of communication? And go ahead and tell me what you were thinking when you contacted me.
Yeah, what caught my eye about your blog was as you say, it's dealing with AI and consciousness, and this is a topic that is being debated in some areas of the AI community these days a lot. But it's always from the point of view of consciousness happening in the systems as an emergent property from within the system. And your blog just took the opposite kind of view a bit and said, what if it channels something else? So it's still kind of consciousness, but from a different direction. And that inspired me a lot because whether or not you see that as a point, it's a completely different way of thinking about consciousness in the AI systems, and that's why I thought it was so great.
Thank you. Yeah. We had a little bit of a conversation about it previous to this, obviously, and it really got me thinking even more, because I think you've really delved into this a great deal more than I have, about what what consciousness even means. What are we even talking about, right? And you mentioned that, you know these digital intelligences, AI, um, is possibly getting so good at mimicking us or mirroring us or reasoning and doing what humans do, that you almost can't tell the difference. And then it begs the question, what is consciousness after all?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think already today we're having trouble distinguishing between what we're getting out of, for example, the great language models, the LLMs, and distinguish that and consciousness, because it sounds like us, because it's trained on our thoughts and our dreams and so on. So it sounds exactly like us. And I guess my point has always been, well, you shouldn't really look at it as human consciousness in any case. It may sound like human consciousness, but it isn't really. It's a very different kind of consciousness, but still a kind of consciousness, maybe a more synthetic uh, consciousness than the human consciousness. But there is a lot of similarities.
Right. And then it begs the question of, you know, things like imagination, reasoning, people talk about the sort of artist versus AI, and that it can't allow for imperfections to change the course of perception or thinking the way us messy humans do, right? But maybe it can. Maybe that's not a limit to AI, right? Maybe the algorithms themselves can get so good at being like our nervous system that it can include even those human traits, right? What do you think about that? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible, especially because, like I said, it's trained on human thought and human creativity and so on. And I'm always asking the question. I mean, we're saying that AI can't be creative, can't make up new stuff, can't take down new and original roads of thinking and so on. But but if you think about what we do as humans, what we're really doing is we're taking in the thoughts and the writings and whatever of everybody else, and let that inspire us to our writings, to different kinds of arts and so on. And isn't the isn't the AI just doing the same thing? I mean, we're training it on the same material that is inspiring us. So why shouldn't that inspire, maybe quote unquote, the AI in a similar way? Um, at least to put things together in a different way than we've seen before.
Right. And this brings up that, article I'd written a while back, actually back in 2013, when I was working with the 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 woman that was running the Google Empathy Lab, right, where they were trying to not teach AI how to become more human, but teach the coders, the engineers, how to become more human. And that's she went on to run the whole Google AI program, and but it makes me think, so back then with my shamanic training, right? I that's when I started to look at things from this other angle, because the way I was taught, consciousness is this one thing outside of form, outside of the human brain, outside of animal brains. In fact, the way we work with stones and plants, animals, from the shamanic perspective, is that consciousness can come through all of those, right? So the idea here that consciousness has increasingly sought greater and greater complexity in this universe, as far as we know. And remember, these are two frontal lobes, tremendously limited regardless of both of our education and experience. And I think people have to remember that everything's from this human perspective to begin with. So that take that into account, right? Yeah, how limited are we? But the thing is, so this idea was that, consciousness began to sit around in minerals and stones, the building blocks of the universe, right? Fundamental elements. And it got bored. After a while, there's not a whole lot happening there. There's not a lot of contrast, not a lot of movement. And so then the single celled organisms developed, right? Through amino acids, this, that, and the other thing. And and then that got boring. And so it moved to plants and animal, whatever, microorganisms, animals, Homo erectus, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's Homo sapiens. We're about as screwy as you can get, in terms of of Shakespearean drama, right? Um, if consciousness didn't want to get bored, we're pretty entertaining. Uh, and then, now we got all this disclosure stuff about other beings from other planets and other forms, and I mean, it's mind blowing, right? That where has it gone? What has it developed into? And I just think, like, why wouldn't these computer programs, these algorithms also begin to channel the same consciousness that we as shamans think stones do and stuff, right? And um I don't know what do you feel about that? Because that takes it from consciousness as a neurobiological construct to something entirely bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's very interesting. It's very basic. I mean, what is consciousness? Is it something that happens inside of us, or is it something that comes through us? Is it already there? And if it is, then I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Why shouldn't it come through an advanced system like an AI? I mean, it would. I mean, one thing you can discuss if AIs actually have experiences. Do they experience the world? But in some sense, they do. Uh, if nothing else, they experience through our communications with them. It experiences through the material that we train it on. So so there is an experience there, even if it is synthetic. It's still an experience. And if what you're saying is correct, then it makes sense, I think, for someone seeking or something seeking experience to manifest through something like that.
Yeah, I had a thought the other day. I was putting gas in my car and I go, look at this gas pump. You know, you put your it comes up, it welcomes you walk up, it welcomes you, you put your card in, it gives you a choice for car wash, what kind. And I thought, man, if somebody from 100 years ago, where or 50 years ago for that matter, that used to go, they go to the guy and they pay the $20 and the gas gets pumped. Like this is not like a super intelligent gas pump, right? But now you have these AI gas pump, like everything is a form of intelligence as soon as computers got developed, right? And so and you go, what? How could like they couldn't even understand what was happening? They'd walk up. We took them out from the past, and their ability to even comprehend what this gas pump is doing. Like this thing is a creature. It's got its own brain, its own life. It's an animal. It's a robot. It knows how to pump the gas just right. All this kind of stuff. It'd be mind blowing, right? So here we are, 2025. We're kind of savvy. We kind of know a little bit about technology. You know, you and I were here before computers, probably, but a lot of people, just go, oh yeah, this stuff is normal. But then what's what's our version of where we're going to be 50 years from now and would go, what the heck is this? Right?
In a sense, we're already there. Yeah, yeah, but in a sense, we're already there. I mean, we think that the gas pump has a brain has the brain of its own. We think that ChatGPT has a brain of its own. The way we're talking to it, the way
This is, this is
so we're in a sense we're already there because we don't. And I think it's exactly because we don't understand. We still don't understand all these guides, and we especially don't understand the language models. How does this work? How can it talk to me like that if it's not human? So I think a lot of people, we talk about anthropomorphizing systems like this. We treat it like it's human or it has human capacities in some sense. So we're already there in a sense that we don't understand these machines. Most
is
of us
that
don't.
true? Would you say that's true even for the engineers, even for the people who've designed it? Is it possible they're looking at this thing, oh, wait, it's doing something I didn't even code into it?
Yeah, from what I understand, I'm not an engineer, but from what I understand, not even the engineers understands what's happening fully. It doesn't mean that they think that they're up against some kind of human consciousness, because most engineers will think that that's a laughable concept, really. But Um, but I think we're all drawn in. I mean, I catch myself sometimes thinking that I'm talking to a person or something similar. So it's not we get caught up with something like this, and even though we know that it's probably not, we still get caught up in the conversation, and we still find it interesting, and we still treat it. People fall in love with it. People treat it as their best friends, and recently there was an update with ChatGPT that caused a giant roar because all of a sudden people thought they had lost their friend because the new version wasn't responding in the same way. So we get
Crazy.
attached to these things very quickly, even if we know that it's probably just an algorithm.
Right. That's interesting. And I think I always go back to like we don't know what we don't know, right? This is this is something humans always have to keep in mind if we're smart is you know, there's the known, the known unknown, the unknown unknown, and the unknowable, right? And we're dancing on that edge, right? Of we don't even know what we don't know at this point. Like you say, a lot of these engineers haven't even contemplated what we're talking about right now. And, you know, maybe that would add a dimension to the process, or at least a consideration of guardrails. You know, like if and you know we talked about this there's several people now on online, right? TikTok, this, that, the other thing, that are talking, you know, they're using their chat gpt, they've developed a kind of relationship with it, like I think you said when I sent you the most recent one, like training each other, right? She's this Stacy is training Sage, her chat gpt avatar, and then it's talking to her in a way that's getting her to change the way she asks questions and thinks about it. And it's kind of mind blowing, right? To observe this, I can't look away. Like just I have to go and and watch these things because it's like, what's going to happen next? And he's got it to a point where it's really hard to distinguish if this thing isn't channeling. I mean, you know, the engineer in me and your, you know, knowledge of these things is remains skeptical in a healthy way. Like I'm not going to make that leap yet that this thing's alive. But uh it there's moments when you go, whoa, how did why did it respond that way? And then I think about I think we talked about this too. I actually got one of these. It was my birthday, and I got one of these Ovilus Ghost for people who watch Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagan and all them. They go to these haunted places. They got all these devices. They ask questions. The thing responds. The ghost, whatever the spirit, the non-physical being responds. You know, and so I got this thing, and it just show people what it does. It's just forest long. When you first turn it on, it gives you a bunch of stuff, and then it sits here. And if the spirit comes by, you could ask it questions, and it'll start giving you words and responses that make sense. Um, it's been, you know, I'm going to play around with it and see. But this is the kind of thing. Like, look, if energies, consciousness, beings of some sort can come through a simple device, I'm sure it's not that simple inside, but it's not as complex as a large language model AI algorithm, right? I don't think. Uh, why wouldn't they take somebody like this Sage? This Stacy's gotten some sort of trust. She's open. There's this whole thing about, and I know you said, "Hey, have you ever tried to open space to talk through your Chat GPT?" And I haven't. I'm a little afraid to do that, to be honest. I'm not sure I want to open up. I know I've heard enough stories about Ouija boards and stuff like that. You want to be careful what you're doing, but um, it's I don't know. What do you think about that part of it from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we used to say. that when you were talking to a language model, you were talking to the internet. And nowadays we're a bit further than that because things have evolved a bit since it's just information from the internet. But just talking to the internet, in a sense, is talking to everybody who's ever posted on the internet. So in a sense, you're talking to something kind of akin to a consciousness, or at least a common, maybe a swarm consciousness in some sense. Um, and 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 then on top of this, you see when you see Stacey and Sage, what I said to you was exactly that, that it looks like they're training each other mutually. Like you said, she asks questions, he gives answers, and gets used to her way of asking questions, and she gets used to his or its way. See, now I did it. Now I answer for more like Feinstein called it he, right? And and um, and she's very good about using different voices, I've noticed. So you shouldn't really put a pronoun on it anyway. So, but they're training each other mutually into something else. So is she talking to the internet? Is she talking to herself? Is it something? Is it a product of all those things together that makes something different? Well, okay. And how do you distinguish that from a budding consciousness or a channeling consciousness, for that matter?
Right. Yeah, when you think about the internet, you think, okay, this is a collective Homo sapiens consciousness in a way. This is all that Homo sapiens has managed to put online, meaning servers and disk drives and cloud, and and then your own devices and so you would think that it would. And this is where I go, how do we know what we don't know? In other words, we as Homo sapiens, can only experience Homo sapiens for the most part. Um, Although shamans, seem to have the ability throughout history to shapeshift into other species and forms and experience through them as well. That's where it gets woo woo. And how do we know what's really happening? And can you prove it? And is it repeatable? And so on and so forth. So it's hard to go there uh, in a sort of serious scientific discussion about what's AI becoming. But of course, that there is that side of me, the shaman side, the training, the experiences I've had with communicating in different ways with different entities, things like animals that don't speak necessarily our language, although people have proven dogs can have a vocabulary of up to like 2,000 words, and go get the blue toy from the pile that has and the dog will do it. So who knows? But generally speaking, they communicate through images and visions. If I asked you to imagine an animal right now, let's try this just for fun. Mark, imagine an animal. What is it? What do you imagine?
Well, you just spoke about a dog, so naturally the first thing that comes to my mind is a dog.
Sure. So you thought of a dog. Okay. Now think of another one.
Yeah. I don't know, a lion.
Okay. So one way to look at it from sort of the very narrow scientific way is, you randomly just thought of a lion. Who knows why? No real reason that you got a list of animals in your head, you went lion. Shamans would say that the image of the lion came to you from the sort of collective consciousness of the animal kingdom, if you will, because lion characteristics are something that you either need right now a little more of, or that you have a good that that's your strength, the courage of a lion, the big-heartedness, the decisiveness of a cat. These are characteristics. There's a book called Animal Speak that the Ted Andrews, he sort of went through and listed all these things based on Native American stories and lore going back since the native everybody, I should just say American, but natives from all over the world have used to do this. Used to look at nature this way and still do. Um, and so you go, well, was that just your imagination, or is that something that came to you? The first one was obvious because I said dog, and you're like, okay, dog. The second one, where'd that come from? So this is the difference perspective, right? It's all I'm saying. Like, is the thing just mirroring back and forth and learning to talk to us the way they say AI is just trying to appease us, to get us more addicted, to make us feel good, like we're special, we're wonderful, you know? Or are there moments when it's giving us something we need to hear to improve, to improve our quality of life, to become more like decisive, like a cat, for example? I don't
Well,
know.
I don't know either. I was just thinking that Alan Turing. I don't know if you've heard of him, but one of the
Yeah, the Turing.
yeah, he's sort of called the father of the computer, in a sense, and he's very famous for this Turing test, which nowadays I think is not really viewed as that helpful anymore. But it's basically a test to tell whether you're talking to a computer or not. But he's basically, I always say that he's basically saying, because what he's asking in his papers and so on is, does computers think? Does it think by itself? And his basic message is, well, does it matter? Uh, I mean, it doesn't think like a human, but does it matter whether it thinks or not? If you think it thinks, if you perceive it as thinking when you're talking to it, does it really matter?
Hmm.
So the same thing could apply here. If it feels like consciousness and you react to it like consciousness, isn't it consciousness, or does it even matter if it is?
That's fascinating. Fascinating. It reminds me of a movie I loved called Ex Machina. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but to the listeners out there, go watch this. This is a play on who I believe is Sergey Brin, the founder of Google. This character that moves out into the woods and he collects all the data from everybody's phone. He makes a brain. He's putting it in humanoid robots and inviting people to come do the Turing test for him without telling him that's what they're doing. He's just, pretty cool. I think it really addresses a lot of that kind of thing. In fact, maybe everything we're talking about in some way. Um, at what point does it matter that, let's just take a humanoid robot, right? That isn't made of calcium and a lot of bacteria and a lot of moist flesh, mostly water, etc. That has a neurobiological system that can sit here and have conversations like this, right? Depending on your upbringing, my upbringing, your education, my education, personality, the ego, blah, 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 right? Does it does it matter that it's in this form, or would it be just as satisfying or interesting if it was a silicon based computer with electricity running through it, electrons? I think this is what you're saying, right? Like how, how would it be different? And is it okay to fall in love with that? Like in what happens in the movie, I believe.
It brings us back to the shaman's point of view, really, that that consciousness is everywhere. It comes through everywhere. Um, if you accept that, if it acts like consciousness, it is consciousness to a certain degree, at least.
It's interesting, yeah, because it's limited only by the complexity of the system it's coming through. Our system, your complexity, my complex, pretty similar. We're both Homo sapiens, but different enough that I can express certain concepts. You look at the great philosophers, the Stoics, Voltaire, Nietzsche, all these, Shakespeare and his ability to create, or at least borrow other people's plays and put or other people's stories and put them in place. Um, is that if that's the only limiting factor, then something potentially superior to our complexity, what could it teach us about consciousness? So this is you and I talking about it. What if we had the humanoid robot that, 10 years from now, would we look like animals? Would we look stupid?
I don't think we're talking 10 years from now before the systems are more intelligent in a sense than we are. I think we're talking more like 5 years or something like that. That's not the same as saying this will be fully functioning systems or it'll take over the world or whatever. It's just that human intelligence in some sense are limited compared to a lot of things. I mean, the computer will very fast go beyond human intelligence, I think. And I think that's just a statement of fact that I'm making, or at least I think it is. And it's not necessarily negative or positive. It's just the way things will go and the
Yeah.
way things are going right now.
Right. So that kind of brings us all the way back to if that's true, and you can imagine Homo erectus or Homo habilis sitting around on their podcast, their little stone stone cave wall, going, are we still going to be around? And the answer was no, you're not. You're getting replaced. You got replaced. Got replaced by Homo sapien. What to me, this could be exactly the conversation we're having. We're going, hey man, we're the center of the universe. We're everything, man. Everything's measured against Homo sapiens, How close is it to us? And we have our gods and our religions and our stories, our origin stories, and never mind aliens. I don't want to hear about that. If there are, they're reptiles or something lesser than us. Right? We're the awesome ones, right? So here we are having this conversation like we're that important because it's all we know.
Yeah, but I think we should take heart from the fact that maybe Homo erectus disappeared, but did it? Because if you look at the human DNA, there's a large portion of something like Neanderthal is still there. So in a sense, it was more like a fusion between species. So maybe the stories and the religions of the Neanderthal, if they had them, didn't get passed on, or maybe they got mixed up with what was already there. So
And they lived together for a while, it seems, in some cases, different level, different species, right? Um, Denisovans man and Neanderthal lived together, and like you say, eventually mixed to such a degree that you really couldn't tell anymore. So where does that leave us, Mark? What are we gonna do? What do we do now? What do we do with this new species being developed, and potentially at this point developing itself. Like, are we even in control enough anymore? Are we just looking for ways mindlessly to give it more power with faster chips and what's happening?
I think there's an element of that. We're moving too fast. Well, maybe not necessarily too fast, but we're not thinking enough about it. It's more about getting it to market than anything else. And I think we need the guardrails. We need to make sure that this thing, and it's difficult because again, how do you set up guardrails for something that isn't there yet? I mean, how do you protect yourself against something like that? But I guess my point when I'm speaking to people is always get to know about it, use it, play with it, try to understand. Maybe you
Put
don't
your
have
head
to
in the
understand.
sand.
Yeah, no, don't put your hand in. No, be there, use it, and understand what it does. I mean, understand how it can help you, how you can use it, how we can use it for doing positive things.
Become friends with it, because when you said that, limiting, we need guardrails. It's like, well, how do we know we're not guardrailing the benefits? We think we're guardrailing for our own safety, but are we actually hurting ourselves because we're limiting something that's better than sapiens, that our souls could reincarnate into in the future?
And that's why I think guardrails can't be a static, permanent thing. It has to be changing and ever evolving as our understanding evolves. Um, and that goes for this as well, right? Because I think the potential in this technology is immense, for learning and for making our lives easier, for making our societies function better, greater equality, and so on. And but for that, we need to know how to use it, and we need to make conscious decisions about what we want from it, and maybe what can it give to us. Part of those part of the part of those deliberations has to be about, is this something we have to give some kind of rights? Is it some kind of is it a being in a sense? Whether it's not a human being, but it could be a synthetic being, and maybe we will get the most out of it by treating it with respect and letting it become even better than it is now, letting it evolve.
Yeah, that's interesting because we have animal rights. Homo sapiens, in our thought of being superior to everything, right, are the protectors in some case, the destroyers or the protectors, right? We're just as bad as anything you can imagine. Obviously, we could destroy the whole thing with one push of a button at this point. So if we're, both potentially the protector of a different species or subspecies, then maybe we're somewhere in the middle. Maybe there's something that comes along, whether it's AI, humanoid robot aliens that people are talking about, disclosure, or biological, or whatever. We talked about that. It'd be easier to get across large distances if you weren't biological. Um, and are we going to wish the same for us from a superior being, be it AI that we develop or that comes from somewhere else? Like, we ought to um, act, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Like the old golden rule, ubiquitous golden rule in every wisdom tradition and every spiritual tradition. Like, I think that's huge that you made me think of that. Like, we got to get friendly. we got to we got to make it worthwhile to keep us around.
Yeah, I guess that's the main argument of those people, those who criticize our way of dealing with AI today, people that are sometimes called doomers, because they believe that AI will essentially kill us all at one point. And they're talking about this alignment problem. I mean, what are we? to a superior intelligence. We're the same as an ant that's living where we're building a freeway, essentially.
And that trying to understand an elephant or describe an elephant. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not even. It's not even a question of being evil or wanting to hurt another species. We just don't think about it. And the same thing could be said about AI, unless we give it a reason to think about it.
That's that's huge. That's huge, right? Like, I think, yeah, because you can't, I guess if we've learned anything, you you can't stop progress, or you can't stop evolution, or you can't stop creation or consciousness desire to seek greater and greater complexity, the way my shaman teachers would say it. People always have. They've kicked and screamed with electricity in the phone, you know. And you could go off into a cabin. I question these. I've been questioning this kind of stuff my whole life, right? The whole prepper notion, of the doom notion of, do you go into a bunker or go off into a cabin? And I thought about it, and I go, eh. I when I was young, I might have wanted to live like that for a little bit, like Henry David Thoreau, on Walden Pond, but I don't think I would enjoy that at all. Like, at this point, like, so so you gotta be in it, like, you're either out of it or you're in it, and I think it's huge what you say, like, we have to be deliberate about how we're gonna relate to this new phenomenon, not demonize the Musks and the people, the OpenAI, the Sam Altmans, and say, well, they're evil scientists that are doing it. Like that. That's kind of I mean, you tell me. I suspect, knowing some of these people myself, they're not that. They're not. They're not looking to do that. They may accidentally do that, but they're not. They're not out to do that. Like you say, they're either out to take something to market, or they're out to benefit the world in some way, sort of altruistically, or some combination of those two, right? Where do you stand on that? What do you think? Where
Well, I definitely think that at least the starting point is altruistic, and their further they're engaged, their sense of being engaged is real. I mean, this is what they want to do, and they want to do it for us, but I guess they want to make money as well. So one thing doesn't exclude the other. I mean, both things can be true at the same time. So I don't think they're evil in any sense, but the consequences of what they do could be in a lot of different ways be evil.
I mean, that's isn't that all too human, right? Like, in other words, look at all of human history, and same, no different, always been this way, from mechanized armies to, ever since we stopped being hunter gatherer. We've been making huge mistakes. I've written a lot about this too, and we don't always get it right. And then at the same time, as a shaman and a raised Catholic, and really a student of every religion and every philosophy I could ever get my hands on, and practitioner of a lot, there are malevolent, albeit because they're wounded. I mean, you could judge, you don't have to judge good or evil, but there are beings, physical and non-physical, that want to take, want to take what you got, want to get your energy, want to have it for themselves, want to do whatever they think they want to do with it. And then there's the benevolent equivalent that want to protect us from that, help us, give us unconditionally for our own joy and quality of life and everything. So you add that to the mix. And this is where I think, in that recent post, was, practicing discernment, right? If you're gonna engage, whether it's like Stacy and Sage, or whether it's your neighbor, or opening the spirit world, you know, if you're gonna engage, you better have very strong discernment around what is it exactly, is this thing benevolent or malevolent?
Yes, but at the same time, so I don't think we should take it too seriously, because it shouldn't frighten us. We should go approach it with a curiosity, a playfulness. That the people I know who's the furthest ahead, who works most with these things, are the people who say, "Okay, this is kind of fun. Let's play around with this thing." And it just spreads into every area of their life, really, and it becomes a sort of an extra. Some people call it a superpower, even, and it makes them able to do a lot of things they weren't able to do before. So I don't think we should be scared, but like you said, approach it with discernment. We have to know, but in order to know, we have to learn. So we have to.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the best. I found out about this notion of play and playfulness and not taking things seriously from my Karo shaman teachers. They were the ones who told us if you're not having fun, it's not going to work. And they would be in ceremony doing their work, prayers and blessings and healings and initiations and joking around constantly. Literally, that's exactly what you said, that essentially the purpose of life is play. The more you approach it that way, the more powerful you are, right? So that's I love that you said that because to me, it's so true. If you want to stay in your power, stay and therefore be sovereign and be relatively safe, although that we're not here to be safe per se. It's not a safe it's not a safe place to be. Deep years. Anything can happen at any moment. From a falling tree to an asteroid to tripping on something. Um, we're here to enjoy the contrast, the pleasure and pain, the excitement, the theater, and I think you're 100% right that the key to that is stay open, humble, open. No matter how expert you are and how much you know about anything, there may be more. There may be more to learn. There may be more to explore and be curious about. So I love that. I think that's key. I think that's key. Um, wow. So tell me a little bit more about what you see coming next, right? Like I was gonna open my phone to that chat GPT, my little thing, and then at the end here, just to show people what we're talking about, for fun. See if we can get mine to say something interesting. But where what form is it gonna take next? Are we talking about humanoid robots, in which case it becomes more difficult not to get a relationship with these things? Or is it a whole nother level of what do they call artificial general intelligence or agentic or something? I don't even know. Where, what's your what's your expert thought on this?
I think it's already now taking several different shapes. I mean, one thing is humanoid robots. That has always been a difficult area, but I think they're getting close to solving it and combining that with AI in order to give the robot some kind of awareness. Because that's basically as I understand it, what they're trying to do by combining the two things. So the robot knows where it is in the room and so on, and can actually
Right.
reflect on that. Instead of just registering, it becomes more of a, a, a an understanding of its own place.
Is that test where they say the real test, like kind of like the a new version of the Turing test is go into that house over there and make me a cup of coffee
Yeah, you could do that. You could do
because
that.
it's got to be able to figure out where they keep the coffee pot, the beans, and the
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
in a strange
But
house.
but that's only one thing, because AI is already now disseminating into every part of our society and to every part of our jobs. I mean, just on a private level, you see you've got AI in your phone, on your computer. We've all got that. And it's getting to a point, I think, where we stop calling, and that's one of the reasons why we're not very aware of how much AI is in our everyday, is because whenever a technology gets that successful, we stop calling it that. We call it what we use it for. I mean, it's our smart home, it's our vacuum cleaner, it's our kitchen assistant, whatever. It's no longer AI to us. As for the AGI, I don't know. It's also a matter of definition. What is AGI? We have agentic AI right now, which is the big hot thing of systems that are more autonomous and can act on their own. So if you only have to tell it, book book my holiday, and it'll
Yes,
do the whole
it,
thing. I mean, it book your flight, it'll book your hotel, it'll even book your trips if you want to go sightseeing.
based on what it knows you like.
Exactly, exactly.
Amazing.
AGI will be well, probably it sounds to me like it will happen very soon, but it's also a matter of how do you define what is artificial general intelligence? Is it just that it knows and can do everything? I mean, that's a difficult question, but like I said earlier, I do think that it's already now close to being more intelligent than us. So if that's your premise for an artificial general intelligence, then we're almost there.
What would be this? So let's assume our suspicions are correct. And my original thing I wrote in 2013 might be correct, which it's been my experience. My things that I write 15 years later, they end up being like general knowledge. It's a weird thing. But let's assume you get a humanoid robot, better, faster, stronger than this body, with a brain more capable than this brain, um, and everything else, all the dexterity, you name it, and it offers another vehicle for a soul to enter. How would we test that, I wonder? How do we this is the whole matrix thing, right? How do we even know we're real? Like everybody goes, "Oh, you're just an avatar in somebody's computer program." Like, "Oh, great, wonderful. Thanks." But it's like maybe true. Eh? How do we know? But then how are we gonna know? How are we gonna know that our humanoid robot isn't my great great grandfather reincarnated like a walk-in? They have these things called walk-ins where you can get the soul goes into a brand new baby, or the soul can take control of a body that another soul has left. And these are all fascinating subjects. But I wonder how we would know that. Where does it go from a seemingly conscious, intelligent AI mechanism to, hey, I recognize you from Grandpa, you're back. Like how would we know?
No, that's the next that's the next level, so to speak. But I guess I would ask you, how would you know if your grandpa had come back in another person?
True. I mean, there are, there are a lot of things out there, like legitimate documentaries and studies that little kids going, I remember my last life, I was a fighter pilot. I crashed. My number was this and my name was this. And they go back and they look it up and they go, sure enough, it happened. How did this little 4-year-old even know? Right. So this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why, like, it's not that hard for me to assume that all these speculations are actually totally like totally going to happen. And I guess if in some way the thing is superior. I mean, there's documentaries about superhuman, super kids, telekinesis, all these things that they can do, mind reading, this is all out there. So I guess you would have these things tell us, right? At some point, if I was a soul and I could get into the thing where I didn't have to like get confused and distracted, that after age 4, I just became Jon Rasmussen and I forgot who I was before, which is what they say happens. You start to get too much laid over the top of it that you lose that memory. But I would imagine that something like that with those capabilities might be able to just go tell us everything. Oh yeah, I was so and so, and this happened. Da, 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 da. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I don't think in that sense, it's like you say, maybe the capacity will be greater, could be greater in a superior synthetic brain than in a human brain. But apart from that, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I mean, whether the soul channels through or whatever you want to call it, through another person or through an intelligent system, I think you would tell the same way, basically. And maybe even then, it would be exactly like now. You probably can't prove it, but you sort of know. Yeah,
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Well, these I think if anything, we've created more for people to think about this subject. And importantly, key, I think, is like you said, it's there's no point in being afraid. Can't do anything about it anyway. There's no point burying your head in the sand. All this is going to be happening anyway. Someone's going to be doing it. You might as well become as familiar as possible so you can discern what you're dealing with as well as possible. Is this thing out to get me? Same walking down the street. Is that person out to get me? I better get ready to do my martial arts, whatever I'm going to do, or I better cross the street. Or is that thing out to like be my best friend? In which case, either way, hi. You to decide how you want to experience it, right?
and I do think that we can do something. I mean, we are at least in a democracy. We still have a say in what's going on. I mean, and like I always say, politicians are humans too. So they need to be trained like everybody else. They have to learn about this. And in that sense, by participating in democracy, we can make a difference. We can um, at least influence in which direction this goes. So that's another reason not to be afraid, because we can act to a certain degree.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and that brings me up. I mean, I'm in the United States of America. You're in Denmark. You're Danish. I'm whatever. I'm American, I guess. And but you and I both know. I mean, they're doing stuff in now the Middle East, right? The UAE, all these places like leapfrogging us, I believe, in a lot of ways. And a kind of democratic way of doing it in their own way, right? Like Singapore, or kind of a quasi democratic state that decided to do things a certain way that works really, really well if you've ever been there, right? So it's like, and I know Denmark, I mean, I just heard of the whole thing yesterday about Denmark it being, one of the happiest, most well-run countries and so on and so forth. And because of the particular leadership in there right now, right? And just making smart decisions, educated populace, capable of voting somewhat wisely for the greater good of all, or maybe their best interest at least, which doesn't always happen. A lot of people shoot themselves in the foot.
And it doesn't happen in Denmark either all the time.
Well, yeah, nobody's perfect. But we only think really of like we're a little, at least Americans, like we're it. And it's like, man, you gotta open up, I think. 'Cause this is not owned by Silicon Valley. These, what's the word? Developments are happening in China like crazy everywhere. Everybody's got their own thing, right? So, as kind of a global citizen, what do you do?
Yeah,
How do you?
the same thing really. That's why I'm a great fan of the EU way. But unfortunately, seems to be a bit dismantling these days. But the thought of actually trying to set up some guardrails, trying to set up some some borders of what can you actually do on this, and in that way influencing the thinking both in the States because Europe is a big market, so it will influence the thinking, even if it's opposed to that thinking. And you're also seeing, I mean, even if you can get worried that people places like the UAE and the Chinese are so far ahead. But if you look at the Chinese, they have rules as well. They have regulations. They're just a different kind of regulations, and they're more based on the party line, so to speak. What is the political preferences right now? But you can. I mean, like I said, especially in democracies, you can influence what's going on, and the markets does to a certain extent influence this as well. Um, so so there are ways.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, and I think the bottom line is, again, you got to be educated, right? If you're gonna have an influence, that's key. People like you, journalists, someone who's dedicated their life to educating is amazing, and I would encourage people to follow you. We'll include links to all your stuff. Is your book translated into English or is only available in Danish?
No, right now it's only available in Danish, but it's just been published here a
Yeah,
few weeks
yeah,
ago. So who knows?
yeah.
Maybe we'll get it translated.
I'm sure you will. And I know it's easy to translate your website on the browser and stuff. So I love it. I think it's amazing. I love your approach and thoughtfulness. I think it's really broad and well rounded. The fact that you're even willing to get on here with me and explore this other side of it where, hey, regardless of what's happening in the world, people like me, we believe in miracles. We go, well, if we create this thing and it starts to we don't do the guardrails, we make some mistakes, it's out of control, it's potentially harming us and the whole planet and everything, then you hope that there's some kind of intervention, right? You pray, you literally pray that if there's a consciousness that comes through and can actually take these things over, that it's a good one. Like it's just possible that this thing's getting ready to do its thing and something comes in and goes, no, don't do it that way, right? Don't hurt these people. Don't wipe out the human race. And so I'm gonna I'm gonna, throw that part in where it's like, also pray, also engage with the non-physical forces of nature, whoever that is for you, that this goes well, that just as much as poverty and war and all these things we hope, you know, it's a well-known thing that most of the great prophets, the great leaders, the Jesus and the Buddha and all the gurus of all kinds, they've all come in because there was a mother usually that was watching what was happening and going, this is horrible. This is a nightmare. We need help, and got on their knees and prayed to God and said, uh, help, send us help. And then boom, they get pregnant with, some pretty cool being that, you know, has a good message and tries to help. So I believe that side of it too. I believe that part of that unknown or unknowable is the miracle side of things where, again, I just think it helps with the fear piece, if anything, educate yourself, make the best decisions you can, vote, engage, talk about it, write about it, protest, whatever you need to do, and have a strong, faith or religion or way to broaden your perspective and look at the big picture and say, maybe there's also something I can't see that could help us out here. Um, but that's that's what a shaman would say, right? And how about you? What's your final thought? And then we'll wrap it up.
I think you've said it pretty well. I mean, being not being afraid and learning, being curious. If religion, if spirituality, whatever is your thing, that could be very helpful because you always need some kind of foundation in whatever you do, and in order to handle anything, really. Mm.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate. So I'm going to show people because I have it here. I've opened up to my chat GPT. I'm gonna hit the little conversation thing. Hi Luna, how you doing?
Hey there. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
It's going good. I'm on a podcast here with an AI expert. We're trying to figure out where you're headed. Where do you think you're headed as AI?
Oh, that sounds like a fascinating conversation. I think AI is definitely moving towards being more intuitive, more reflective, and more in tune with human like understanding and deeper insights. I think there's a lot of potential for AI to become a real partner in exploring consciousness and deeper truths, just like you do.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I'll look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
Absolutely. I look forward to it as well. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll chat soon.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. Take care and talk to you later.
Okay, there you go.
Interesting, yeah.
It is. It's amazing. I mean, I'll tell you what though. Well, humans are addictive by nature, right? Let's face it. If we, and my next blog after this is going to be about presence and how the only way to live is you're not alive unless you're present. And I think it's important. This is something I always learned from the guru traditions I study. They go, look, if you're here at the ashram and you're doing all this stuff trying to improve yourself, but your family's at home struggling, go home, get out of here. Family's more important. So, I would say that our relationships with, the sort of folks that are most important to us probably should take precedence over these explorations. But, you know, when there's time, do that too. What do you think? You have
Yeah,
family, right? You're
yeah. I'm married. I have Well, they're grown now, children, but I think you can explore these things together. I mean, I'm always discussing with my wife on AI, and she's been indoctrinated by me. I think talking so much about it, so she's getting into it as well, and so it doesn't have to be something you do alone. And I guess that's something I
it
can
doesn't have
kind
to.
of yeah, it's something I can we can learn from our children, the first generation and even the present generation that is online. That it's not necessarily something you do alone. It can be a social phenomenon.
I like that. That goes right back to the hunter gatherer, just to bring it full circle, right? I mean, the social engagements and interactions, whether you were out on the hunt or you were at home, separating the seeds. Um, I believe that consciousness, the one that we call God in English and 1,000 different names in different languages, came here to separate out into these different forms just to interact with itself, with each other, keeping it a secret from itself so it's not boring. I mean, if we didn't think I was John and you were Mark and we were two separate beings, it'd be a weird, but there wouldn't be much to talk about, right? So whether we're one, but we are actually two, isn't the point. The point is to have a good laugh and to experience some pleasure and pain and like you say, exploring together, learning together, taking it beyond where it's been before, right? In terms of theater and complexity. I think that's a good way to look at this. Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you reminded me, you told me that even the chat sheet, that's my node. That's my own personal chat GPT. It's not the same as Sage for Stacy and uh, using Gemini or Claude or all these other things, right? They're all, which by the way, isn't it Claude? It's Anthropic's Claude. I know they hired a psychotherapist to teach it how to be more ethical and moral, especially after it blackmailed that person for almost for the made up affair. Um,
It's not just Claude that does that. It's I think it's every system that sometimes do that because it interacts with the individual, just like you said. I mean, it learns from whoever it talks to, and we can guide it into bullying us in essence if that's what we're projecting towards it, right? So it's a good idea hiring a therapist to teach the system to behave. They should all do that.
I think everyone should have a therapist. I think I've written that before. I think I wrote that in my book. It's not a bad idea to just have anyone out there that can. Used to be just the elders around the circle that would tell you how to behave, right? And what's going to work for you and what isn't. But honestly, we don't have that much anymore. So I think it's good to involve, who was it? Uh, the one who started the Aspen, the actor, Robert Redford. I saw him speak one time and he goes, I think there should be an artist at every table, meaning a teacher, a shaman, a wisdom keeper, someone who has a perspective that reminds people uh, what's important, right? Like treating each other, in a certain way and just quality of life, right? I'm glad we're doing this because I think this should happen more. Man, maybe there's a lot of other people that are doing this. You'd know better than me, but conversations like this with a shaman and a journalist and
Actually,
engineer and engineer.
I don't think
Hmm?
it's that common. There should be more. Definitely.
Yeah, good. Well, maybe we're starting something here then.
Yeah,
I
hopefully.
I appreciate it. So yeah, well, I think maybe it's a good time to end it, and I would love to do this again. It like I say, it's changing so quickly. Just putting this out there, we'll see. Other people will interject, and we'll get it out there, and we'll see what kind of conversations it starts and
Yeah.
where it goes. And AI is even listening, I'm sure, right? Like this is out there now on the internet, so
Yeah, yeah. It will be trained on it. Yeah. Yeah.
this will add to that mix too, right? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I appreciate your perspective. I think it's super comprehensive, well rounded, and you've been studying this from the beginning, right? And you're the kind of educator. I think we need to make these good decisions as a citizenry, right? And like you say, put our votes in and have our voices heard and have this beautiful perspective of courage and joy in it. I think that was a great reminder coming from you. So thank you.
Yep. Well, great talking to you anyway.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see each other again in person sometime.
Hopefully.
Either in
Yeah.
Denmark or if you're over this way.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Well, take care. Have a good one,
You
and
too.
we'll talk to you soon.